So I just want to give a quick shout out to my sponsor, Anchor. And if you haven't already heard of Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. And I'm going to explain that. And for one, it's free. And there's a lot of creation tools that will allow you to record and even edit your podcast right from your phone or even your computer. And Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and so much more. You can even make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, and it's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So if you're thinking about making a podcast, seriously, check it out. It's the best.
When the tears are rolling down like a river to the ocean, and there's no one else around, you won't question my devotion. Everybody needs somebody, and you got me. You know that I know that you know that I'll be there for the highs and lows. Give you mine if your heart gets broke. By your side when you're all alone, I will be there. When you're down on your luck, no ride home and you got too drunk. 2 a.m. I'ma pick you up. I will be there. I'll be there, I'll be there, I'll be there for you. I'll be there, I'll be there, I'll be there for you. When you're down on your luck, no ride home and you got too drunk. Whoa, I'll be there, I'll be there, I'll be there for you.
Hey everybody, thanks for checking in with Voices of Serenity. So tonight I have 3 special guests. I have Jennifer, who is now officially a part of Voices of Serenity and Threads of Serenity. And I also have Daniel and Matt from Two Beards Talking. That is their podcast. I'll let them explain about their podcast here in a second. But tonight we're going to be covering the Sophie Long case. I know that is something that is being talked about all over. So we're going to touch base on that and kind of talk about things along those lines. So introduce yourselves.
Well, I am Daniel Sanders, and this is my co-host, Matt. How you doing this evening, Matt?
I'm doing fantastic.
And like Heather said, we are the hosts of Two Beards Talking. It is a weekly talk show that airs on Armed Radio on Monday evenings at 10:30 Eastern Time, as well as here on Anchor. We cover politics, current events, special interests, whatever just floats our boat and tickles our fancy, really.
Shameless product. We have t-shirts.
Yes, we have t-shirts as well.
Jen, what about you?
Hi, I am Jennifer, and I just linked up with Heather with Voices of Serenity and Threads of Serenity. Like she said, I'm super excited to now be an advocate for survivors. And as a former survivor myself, I'm just really excited about the opportunity and just to link up and, bump fist and do all the good things that we want to do in the future for helping people.
Absolutely. So about Sophie Long, for those of you who, for some reason, have never heard of her, she is a 9-year-old little girl from Texas. It's basically all over the internet right now, I guess, in a means of breaking the internet, so to speak. We've all seen the video in regards to, Sophie not wanting to go see her mom, to the escalation of her mother and grandmother are trying to force her out of the vehicle. She's screaming, "Why isn't anyone listening to me? Why are you not believing me?" We've all seen it. So Jennifer, she's going to kind of give us a quick rundown for those who have not heard of the story.
Yeah. So I would say, what was it, about a week ago this surfaced?
Yeah.
And it just instantly, skyrocketed because of just, people's hearts. I mean, just being so broken for her. And, I'm kind of disappointed, obviously, in the lack of news that it's made, but I guess thank goodness for social media these days.
Right. Yeah.
Because I got in a group for her in support. It's called Stand for Sophie, or Stand with Sophie. And I think in this week alone, I've watched it go up to almost 200,000 people. So obviously, many, many people are on board and rooting for, and just the videos, it shatters your heart. I know I've cried over it.
I
But
have too.
yeah. So she's 9, and then she has 2 younger brothers, Jack and Lucas. And from my understanding, they have typical split visitation. And this video surfaced because she more or less, it looked initially like she was pitching a fit and not wanting to go to her mom's. And then the longer you watch, she starts revealing things about being molested by her mother's boyfriend, and the fact that the mom watches. And she brings up, how there's other random men that come and go. And what's so heartbreaking is you're just having to listen to that, not only, but then she's trying to, say, I have a voice. Why don't you believe me? This is my choice. And one part that really just got my heart, I believe it was her grandmother that said, we love you. And she goes, well, I love me too. And that's why I'm not leaving.
Yep.
And it's so powerful how strong and confident she is at only 9 years old, and how much trauma she's already experiencing. But just, she's trying to have this really strong voice, and not only by her mom and her grandmother, but by just the government and police and, all these officials that should be helping her. And it's not saying there aren't people helping her, but she's just being silenced. And that's, I think, what's heartbreaking to people is, she's trying to be so confident and strong, and she's just being let down, and her dad is being let down. And it's very frustrating. So they did have court yesterday. And the dad, he's represented by 2 lawyers who I was really impressed with. They're really feisty, and they're really go-getters. He was given visitation, so he actually picked all 3 of them up this evening. And from what I was reading from the group, everything seemed good. They were extremely happy to be with him. And, he has them through, I think, Monday evening. And then
Monday evening through 5.
Yeah, from my understanding, they have court early November about all the evidence, and really about, actual custody. Because right now it is joint, and that was granted back. But because of a lack of presentation of true evidence, it was just kind of all these videos surfaced, and everything was super fast. But the lawyers need time to gather evidence and actually present it to the judge. And that's when I think they're going to really go over kind of actual custody of the children.
Okay.
Now, I want to input real quick. I have to ask this question because I haven't done a whole lot of research on this per se, but has the father taken her to the doctor and had her looked at? I mean, I know you have to do like a rape kit or everything within so many hours of it happening or whatever, but I mean, can they not still see signs of tearing and scar tissue from penetration?
So he actually, if I'm not mistaken, has taken her to 3 different doctors, because I believe the first 2 were males, and she did not want to have a male doctor, which of course everybody's going, of course she doesn't. If she's been molested, of course she doesn't want a male touching her down there. So he took her to a 3rd doctor, and I believe they had an exam, And the irony of this is the mom had another attorney that everybody was just disgusted with, because that attorney was trying to argue that the dad shouldn't be allowed to take her to the doctor because he was going to try to, like, I guess, coerce something. And everybody was just basically like, no, that's his child. That's his right to take her to the doctor. So that is one thing the judge covered yesterday that I was really impressed with is, you know, she said, no, like, of course he can take her to the doctor, you know, like that's his right as her father. So she has been, and that was one thing she brought up in the video as well to the grandmother. She was saying, you know, that there was blood in her panties and she'd be woken up at night by the boyfriend. That was another thing I really liked that the judge granted, is that the boyfriend has a no contact with the family and he's not allowed to be around them. You
if
know,
I'm not
whether
mistaken, there's not allowed to be any men around her, to my understanding.
Right, which that's what a lot of people were upset about last night, because the dad actually got to FaceTime the kids for an hour, and they were in front of just this blank wall. You know, you couldn't tell where they were, and you could actually hear men's voices in the background of the video. And so Sophie kept hushing her dad, like she'd put her finger up to her lips and things like that. And she even used their safe word. And so a lot of people were calling the police department last night demanding, you know, that they do a welfare check and go and get them, because they were just thinking that the mom was going to take off running with them.
Yeah, I was actually reading an article just before we came on the air this evening, and one of the headlines, or one of the bullet points rather, of the article was a lot of online comments were made to the Frisco Police Department there in Frisco, Texas, and Frisco responded saying that the child was I don't remember excuse me, I don't remember the exact wording of what they said, but basically they said that the child was taken out of the home and put into safe custody.
Yes, I think initially what was going around was they were all taken from the mom and put with
I think it was the aunt, wasn't it?
I don't know if it was a family member or like child services. I never could really figure that out. But apparently yesterday after court, they went back to their mom. It's very disturbing, because what everybody's so upset about with this is the maternal grandmother is the appointed supervisor in the exchange of their custody when they were to meet. And the grandmother in this, you know, Sophie sitting there crying to her about, why don't you believe me? Why don't you believe me? And, you know, the grandmother says something on the lines of, you know, well, Sophie, if you feel so bad about yourself, you wouldn't have won this award, or you wouldn't have done this. I mean, just completely disregarded.
Yeah, you've been in the school play. And if I'm not mistaken, she had also sat here and commented about, in regards to, well, you're only 9 years old. You shouldn't know what any of this is. And I do also remember reading as well that I can't remember if it was the mother or her attorney in court. They were trying to say that those videos were edited and they weren't to its realness. They were trying to use that as a tactic.
Yeah, I'll say the one thing that they said was true is that they're right. She shouldn't know anything about this because she's 9 years old. This should have never happened. She shouldn't know anything about this. She should be a normal, happy, healthy 9-year-old girl playing with her friends, not having to deal with crap.
Exactly. She shouldn't know about it, but unfortunately she does, because they've failed her. You know, and I've tried to, I know for me, like, I'm probably too empathetic and too understanding of people. So I was like, well, maybe the grandmother just doesn't know how to wrap her mind around all of this going on. And, you know, because we all deal with grief differently. We all deal with trauma differently. And I was like, maybe she just didn't know how to handle these comments, but I just couldn't imagine if I had a child or a grandchild and they were saying things like this, that I wouldn't just want to tear every wall down until I receive justice.
Yeah, I would. I would
Right.
Absolutely. And
be sitting
especially
in
with the
jail for that.
grandmother taking part in trying to rip her out of the vehicle. You know, don't get me wrong, I love my kids, but if I was to find out that my daughter had this boyfriend and she knew that her boyfriend was sexually molesting her own child, my grandchild, I would be beating my daughter's ass. Like, I wouldn't continue to try and pull her out of the vehicle. None of that. I'd be like, oh, this is what you're saying? I'm calling law enforcement. We're going to get this handled. You're not going with your mother, regardless if that's my child or not. It wouldn't happen.
Right.
Well, it's kind of hard. Like, it puts the dad in a difficult position because, like, if that was another man, he could just walk over there and deck him. But that's, you know, it's your ex and your ex mother-in-law, and you can't hit women. So he's at a disadvantage to where he can't come over there and go, you know, and be physical and say, get out of my car, get away from her. You can't touch her, because then he's going to go to jail. And that does her no good if he's in jail.
Right. And then, you know, they were more or less egging him on in that first video that surfaced of just talking about, you know, you've made her act like this. What did you do to her? Like, what happened? You were fine when we dropped you off. Like, just all these accusations at him about him making her act that way and be that way. And it's sickening.
It is, and I've seen that happen with a lot of my friends around here. Matt, I don't know if you've personally experienced it, but I've talked with a lot of my friends who they deal with all the time, dropping their child off to go with the ex, the mother. It turns into a shouting match of, you're trying to coerce my child and you're telling my child to say this, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it also doesn't have that men especially in the southern states, we draw the short end of the stick because we're still backwards down here, and court systems just assume that men can't raise children as good as women. So it's hard for a guy to really go, you know, I can do this better.
It is like that up here as well. New York State, they are very well known for being the mom state, so to speak, which is funny because, you know, without putting my personal feelings into it, for legality purposes, I guess I should say, there are a lot of women who still have to fight for those rights. But 95% of the time, it is always the father who does get screwed over. They could be doing everything right by the book. The mom could be this horrible person who's a drug addict, beating her kids, letting her kids be sexually assaulted, and the mom still has their children. It's very mind-blowing. It is definitely like that up here too.
It's very backwards. It's almost, I mean, I know some of my friends and I have talked about, at least for Alabama, because that's my only frame of reference. If a mom in Alabama does not have her children, like you've really messed up. Because, I mean, you can do thing after thing after thing, and it's like the courts just give you chance after chance after chance. And then there's these other times that, you know, the dad or the mom could screw up over and over and over, and the courts will just continue to let them have the kids or have another chance. Oh, okay, well, you can have them back now. You know, so it's just, it's just failing all the way around.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, as a mother, you have really got to screw up in the court's eyes, and 9 times out of 10 from what I've seen, it's always been drug related.
No, I have literally seen women get caught dealing meth and get their kids. And I'm like, she was literally just in jail for meth.
Yeah.
Okay, way to go, Alabama.
It doesn't make sense. So it's such a problem, and it's just one of those things of, half the people bury their heads almost like an ostrich in the sand and just don't deal with it. Like, they want to be mad, but then they don't really want to get out and elect new officials, demand harsher punishments, new law reforms, things like that. And then you have some, I think, that just feel so defeated because, I mean, look at all the human trafficking, the sex trafficking, all these higher ups, famous and rich, that are involved in it. So it's kind of a battle that you don't even know. It's kind of defeating before you even start.
The name Chrissy Teigen keeps popping in my head when you mention it.
Just that one?
Oh, no, there's several others, but Chrissy Teigen's right there in the very front because all of the tweets that she had that she deleted were way beyond fucked up.
Yeah. See, but even with that, though, Jen, you made a good point with the human trafficking and everything going on. And Daniel and I kind of touched base on this earlier before the show. Don't get me wrong, like, I'm very happy that all of these things are, I don't even want to say coming to light, but I'm very happy at the simple fact that everyone's eyes are starting to open. Because with like the children who were trafficked and rescued in Georgia or Michigan, Ohio, and I'm sure there's other states, and there's going to be more continuing to happen and be rescued. These are honestly situations that have happened for quite a long time, but no one's eyes were open. People weren't paying attention. And I mean, it's like, for example, Watchdog, the website that everyone is losing their minds over to see what sexual predators are around you and such. That has been around for such a long time. And when that resurfaced this year, I was kind of mind blown at how many people lost their mind over this website. People's eyes weren't open. Thankfully, they are now. However, this has been going on for a long, long time.
I find it just a little more than a coincidence, the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell gets arrested and then all of a sudden they start finding all these kids. Like, that's, I mean, it's going. It's I think they're going to start opening up the floodgates on this stuff, and people are big a problem this is, not just in this country, but in this entire world.
Yep. And I mean, it's like, and it's very unfortunate because with this being considered a good thing, people still have to watch out for those bad things. People have to watch out for, a wolf in sheep's clothing, so to speak, who come out and they're like, oh, we got you. We'll save you. We'll help you. We'll take this on. And it's not really happening. So people still have to be very cautious with who they allow in their lives, who they allow in their circle. It doesn't matter if you are, and I mean this very loosely, but in regards to government agencies, organizations, not everyone is out to help you. There are a lot of people who are just wanting it for face value. And that's really it. So people have to be very careful with that as well.
Yeah, they're not doing it to serve the greater good.
Exactly.
They're doing it to serve themselves.
Yep. Pretty much.
Money,
Right.
fame, and maybe a few other
Pretty
things on the
much.
side.
And another point, I think this is just a topic people are just naturally uncomfortable with because of course this isn't a comfortable topic. Nobody wants to think about children being molested or abused, especially if you're not, so to say, familiar with it in your little small town or small community. It's always
Correct.
why the weird uncle, it was always just easier for him to be told not to come around, or hey, you just tell your kids not to wear shorts when Uncle Bob comes around, or
Right.
so it's like everybody just kept things hush hush. And it's kind of the whole ignorance is bliss thing. I think a lot of people just want to live there naturally because if you don't talk about it, if you don't think about it, if you don't read about it, it's almost as it doesn't exist. But this save our children, save the children, all these things on social media that has gotten so powerful and so loud, to be honest. I mean, it's gotten loud. And I think people can't ignore it anymore. And also, those that used to just be consumed in information, they were almost viewed as the conspiracist and things like that. Where on the flip side, the problem, and I know Heather, you and I have talked about this, it's almost sometimes too much information is too much, and we mentally and emotionally take that on, especially dealing with these abuse cases and things, and you just start to take on these burdens, and you start to just, I know for me, sometimes I just look at the world and I'm like, y'all are awful. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it's like I don't see good, and I have to kind of refocus because I'm like, there's so many awful, awful people out here. And so you kind of have to find that delicate balance of
Yes.
between the ignorance is bliss and too much is too much. And so I think people are trying to figure that out, but it's here, and it's getting forced, and it's getting exposed, and it's getting put in people's faces now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because it's like, for those who are listening, Jen and I, we've worked alongside each other for about a year now, and we've worked cases that deal with this kind of stuff, just like you just said, child abuse, sex abuse, trafficking, domestic violence, all of those things and much more. And it is very emotionally exhausting, mentally exhausting, all of it, and it's, if you are so put in front of it, and especially with working these cases, you will see the world in a different way. Whereas everyone who's just on Facebook reading an article, they're like, oh my, that's so sad, which don't get me wrong, it is, but they don't see the side of it that we have seen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like you pointed out, Heather, we were talking before the show started this evening, and like I said to you, it's an ugly truth, but it's a truth nonetheless. This thing, the whole save the children, and everyone, we know we all got to be taking care of the children and looking out for the children. Like I said, it's an ugly truth, but right now it's a fad.
Yeah, actually, oddly enough, Daniel and I helped get a pedophile group on Facebook taken down the other night. Like it was it wasn't even a private group. It was open. Anybody could have found it. And one of my friends found it and tagged me in it, and I tagged Daniel in it, and we just went through and just started reporting everything, the group, the post, everything they ever posted. And to my knowledge, they purged that entire group.
Yeah. Before Epstein and Maxwell and all of this stuff that's been going on over the last year, if nation found 39 kids, 39 missing children in the state of Georgia, it would have been on the news for a day, and anyone watching the news would have said, oh, hey, Good job, GBI. And then it would have just been forgotten.
Sadly so. I can definitely agree to that to some sort of extent. But, I mean, it kind of goes back to what I was saying before of it's always been this way. Sadly, last year there was lots of children rescued, discovered, saved, whole 9 yards. But it was exactly what you just said. You would see it on the news and it would be like, oh man, that's so sad. But thank God they saved those kids. And then let's see how the weather is today. That's what it was.
Yeah, exactly. It's the pandemic. It's everyone not working, not having a life, which most of the people didn't have a life before the pandemic anyways. But not working, not having a life, spending instead of 92% of their time, now they're up to 98% of their time on social media. And now it's everyone is a social justice warrior for some sort of cause, whether it's save the children or kill the pedophiles,
shoot your local pedophile, yeah,
stop the murder hornets.
Yep.
I can actually get behind that one.
Yeah, I could.
No, I agree. And going along the lines of with what you just said, everyone, I've noticed a lot, everyone is throwing out the word advocate out there. Like there is no tomorrow. Someone, people will sit here and read stories on Facebook or read an article and they share it. And because they shared it, they're automatically some kind of advocate that deals with trafficking, sexual abuse, child abuse, what have you. Now all of a sudden they're an advocate.
Well, I mean, it's just like during the height of the Iraq War, about what we were going and doing over in Iraq, and all of a sudden they became a freaking war correspondent for CNN.
Mm-hmm.
Social media.
It really has. I feel that in my soul. I agree so much.
We are becoming the epitome of the phrase.
Well,
too
then
many
the
cheese,
problem
not enough
with
Indians.
that is you have, Joe Blow over there. That's like, well, I'm going to start a Facebook group because I'm mad, I'm unemployed, and I'm gonna
and he has no life.
At least make it appear, because we know how reality how real social media is. I'm gonna make it appear that I am an advocate, so to say, for X, Y, and Z. Anybody can do that. You can pull some news articles, this, that, or the other, invite, like, and then all of a sudden you're seen as a hot shot. And then when truth actually comes out, or when, other organizations try to say, hey, they're doing a good thing, let's connect with them, but then one's doing things correctly and one's not, those truths are going to come out. And then you have these victims that have just been, they already have all these trust issues anyway. And then they go to a non-trusting organization or person, and it's like pouring acid on a burn already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm of the camp that if I don't know about it, I don't speak about it. And that's just how I've always been. I don't make things up.
But you have an opinion. You have a right to free speech. You have to vocalize yourself.
Yeah, but I also have the right to not sound like a fucking idiot.
How dare you, sir? I am offended.
Like, if you open, I tend not to open my mouth unless I know a little bit about something about what I'm talking about.
I am offended by your non-offensiveness.
Well, I'm sorry that my non-PC triggered your PT.
It's fine. It's fine. I'll be passive aggressive over here. It's fine.
No, you're absolutely like, Heather, you were telling me before we started the show this evening, there is a group out there who's trying to bring awareness to the fact that there's a national database that you can go on to type in a person's name or put in a city and zip code or whatever the case may be, and it's called the National Sex Offender Registry Database, and it will tell you the individual's name, where they live, where they've lived in the past. It will show you this individual's pictures, and it will even tell you what crime they were found guilty of to be placed on said list. This database has been around for years. Law enforcement agents for years, when a sex offender moves into the area, whatever neighborhood they move into, they will send out pamphlets within a 20-mile radius saying, hey, a sex offender, a known sex offender, a registered sex offender just moved into your area.
Exactly.
Here's their picture. Here's what they did.
Yep.
And you were telling me that there is a social media group on some platform out there trying to put a stop to that.
Yeah, in a sense. Just kind of like what Jennifer said, it's just a kind of,
well, they can't.
Yeah, they definitely can't put a stop to it. But, kind of like what I was saying and what Jennifer was saying, it's just these people. I mean, anyone can start an organization. Anyone can start a group or podcast, whatever it is. Anyone can do it. But it doesn't mean that you should. It doesn't mean that you can go around and be like, oh, hey, I'll take this on for you. I'll take that on for you. But I'm not doing any of the work, but I'll take credit for it. Like, it doesn't work that way. And kind of like what Matt said, that's how everyone should be. If you don't know anything about it, shut up.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I can swan dive off of the Empire State Building without a parachute.
That's
mean I
true.
should do it.
Yeah, but you can only do it once.
Maybe twice.
I'm going to say it's a solid one time and done.
I mean,
unless you bounce.
But it's also just such a problem with, this, I guess, famous. Like, there is so much power in social media, but the downside of it is, when people get popular or they get famous. I know when Heather, you and I were working together, there was a case a while back that was, I believe he was running for mayor, and I may not have that correct, out in Oklahoma, in not a very big town, just small town. But anyways, he committed a sex crime on a child. And we exposed him and outed him. And on Facebook, this post got reported. The group we got restricted. We couldn't, make posts for like 30 days. We couldn't invite new people, all because he was running for a political position. And
Correct.
So it was amazing to me, because I'm like, this is a very small town out in the middle of nowhere. This guy is, like I said, maybe running for mayor. I couldn't even remember, but it was so insignificant compared to, like, obviously the president or things like that. So it just goes to show, if somebody like that can silence a platform, if people think the government or famous people or rich people aren't, completely backwards with their money. And it's not to say all of them, but money rules things. It really does.
And it changes people too. And people get greedy over it. People will do whatever they can to get money under false terms.
So it's just, it's scary, because it's so scary how money can truly change morals. And it's just one of those battles, like I was saying, that, people almost feel defeated before it's even started, because they're like, how do I battle, this mountain? I have a pebble.
Right.
But that really opened my eyes, because it was just bumfuck Oklahoma,
Yeah.
and it was that much power.
I didn't know there was a bumfuck Oklahoma. I didn't know there was one here in Alabama.
Well, I'll tell you this. You give me a shit ton of money, I'm going to be the same asshole. I'm just going to be that asshole with the tank.
Bring that tank up here to New York. We need it.
Go big, right?
I mean, yeah, why not?
That's right.
You're going to overcompensate. Do it right.
So that's the thing too. I think people just feel overwhelmed and they don't know what they can do to really make a difference. Or like, you know, and to go back to the Sophie case, I mean, who's to say her dad was like, I've battled these courts for years, you know? Because I know with me personally, when I went through all my domestic violence stuff, I just was let down constantly by the court system over and over and over again. And I was just like, it's really not for the victims.
Right.
And it makes you want to just quit or give up and just be like, it's not even worth it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that are sharing this stuff on Facebook and all these social media, they want that instant gratification. They want that dopamine hit. They were like, oh, I did my good thing for today. So I feel accomplished. I did a good thing. Look at how many retweets I got. But you're not really helping. You're bringing awareness, yeah, but you're not really helping the problem.
No, absolutely. I definitely agree. And I mean, it's like with people using the hashtag save the children, hashtag save our children. You know, I see it all the time. And it's awesome that people are doing that. However, you know, you're not really accomplishing anything when you put save our children 500 times in a row. You're still getting that same outreach with just one.
Well, yeah. Well, it's also a desensitization thing, because if I see it enough,
that's exactly it.
It's going to lose its meaning. Like you see it one time and you're like, okay, yeah, this is serious. But you start seeing it over and over and over.
Right.
And you're like, okay, I get it. Come
Yep.
on.
And a lot of people, they don't understand that.
Well, I know for me personally, I've experienced my little small town that I live in. We have little like what's happening pages, I guess, where everybody complains about Jack's being out of biscuits and things like that. Just small town drama. But I like to stir the pot a little bit. I'll get on there and
no, not you.
Like I
you know, if you
she does.
pot, you got to lick the spoon, right?
To. But yeah, I mean, just earlier today, I posted something on there where a neighbor town busted a 24-year-old that was arranging to meet a 14-year-old. And it's just amazing to me. People are on there and they're mad and stuff, but they're like, this is so crazy that it's right here. And I'm like, yeah, but like, it's because y'all haven't talked about it. And here I am.
Exactly.
You know, you'll share the Save Our Children and stuff, like you said, because people will be like, oh, that's nice. But then I get feedback of, wow, you don't shut up about this kind of stuff. And I'm like, you're right. I don't, because I actually like mean it. And I want the boots on the ground and I want to make a difference with it. It's not because it's a trend or a fad. I've wanted to save our children. I will always want to save our children, not because it's 2020.
That is definitely a difference. So there are people like you and I who invest in this, you know, and we do our best to save children, save survivors, the whole 9 yards. And then there's people who say that they want to, when they just want that monetary gain from saving the children, survivors, things like that. And that's why, you know, like I said earlier, people need to be very careful on who they reach out to, because, you know, and I guess, you know, people could think the same from me, you know, and with you, Jennifer, you know, we're here screaming, we will help you, but it's almost a sense of proving, so to speak. Mm-hmm. You know, we have to show that we mean it. We're going to help you. We'll do everything we can. We don't give false promises. You know, we're not going to look at someone and say, I guarantee you'll get justice for your situation. I can't do that. You know, I can't promise you that. However, I can promise that I will do my best. I will promise you that we will look into this. And if we can do something about it, we will. But there's so many people out there who give that false sense of security. And it's for that monetary gain. And it's heartbreaking.
I would rather every time under promise and over deliver than over promise and under deliver, because that right there is where I was let down by our court system in Alabama. I was over promised and way under delivered, and it just, those feelings of just heartbreak and distrust and anger. And so I would rather give an if to something and really shine, you know, be able to like overcome and over deliver with something. And then that's how you gain that trust with people.
Correct. Absolutely. And I mean, those people who notice that they're not getting the proper help that they were promised, they do notice. You know, they definitely notice. They will speak out eventually. I mean, I've experienced that for years. You know, everyone who listens to my show know that I was a part of BAA, and there was cases that I worked there, and even prior, when I had a prior organization. BAA is not mine. I'll just put that out there. But it would almost be the same thing. Cases would be made. There would be promises. They turn into broken promises. Cases went cold. That would happen in my prior organization. I would have other admins and, you know, other people within it that would do the same thing. You know, we're going to get this predator off the street and we're going to do this, this, and that, but it never happened. You know, so people, they can't do that. And they have to be very careful with the people that are helped. And even same thing with Threads of Serenity. You know, eventually I would like to take it into an investigation, you know, investigative tunnel, so to speak, where we take on investigations of rape and sexual assault. But I can comfortably say at this moment, I know that I can't provide it. So I'm not going to give someone a false sense of hope.
Right. And it gives them false security as well. And it's just,
you know, and I sometimes, I mean, and I think some people, they do mean well when they overpromise, because I think people just naturally, you know, there are just people that do just naturally want to help. And so I think it's just human nature to say, yeah, we're going to do this, this, and this. And that's where training and courses and classes and just, you know, all of that is very important, because if you just bring somebody in, they can have the best heart in the world and the best intentions in the world. But if they've never been trained on how to be an advocate and they're just given this title, they might make the mistake of overpromising, even though they don't mean to make, so to say, a false promise.
Correct.
It's the little things. And that's why, like I said, training, courses, even online courses, just learning correct verbiage, empathy methods, stuff like that. It's so important, because you can have somebody with the best intentions completely fumble something, and then you're just left with a mess.
Agreed. And I do think that because of everything going on and everybody finally opening their eyes to this, I do feel that it is very important, regardless, you know, whether with all this stuff going on in the media, you know, people really need to pay attention and listen to their children.
yes.
You know, like we said in the beginning of the show, absolutely. She is 9 years old. She should still be playing with Barbie dolls. She shouldn't know anything about that, and not just shot down with, oh, well, why don't you believe in yourself? You know, you got picked for the school play. Like, that shouldn't be there.
Right. And the Save Our Children, it doesn't mean that it should be Save Our Children, the ones that are screaming out about sexual abuse. It means if you're a single mom or a single dad, like, you're cautious about who you bring around your children. You don't bring somebody around for the first date. Maybe you have a 6-month time frame. I don't know. I mean, I don't have kids, so I've never had to make those decisions, but it's in the little things. And it's like I was talking about earlier, instead of having your kids make sure they wear pants when Uncle Bob comes around, tell Uncle Bob to F off and he's not allowed to come around.
Correct.
You know, like that's Save Our Children as well. It's not just, oh, there's a child that's been abused, you know, now it's gotten to the bad point. Let's save our kids. No, it's being proactive about saving our kids.
Correct. I agree.
And it's, you know, I don't have kids, but I guarantee you, if I'm ever out grocery shopping or something, if I see a woman or even a guy and they have multiple kids, you know, I'm keeping an extra eye on them just in case. Because kids, I mean, they're wild. They'll run around. They'll do what they want. They can get away from you before you even realize it. So even just those extra eyes in the community, you know, just being the extra watchdogs. I mean, those are Save Our Children things.
Yeah, I have a child. He's wild, but you know, no one's gonna do anything while I'm around because I open carry.
But I mean, it's nice to know, like, if the two of y'all are out and you see a mom with her kids, you know, that you're keeping an extra eye on them, because cops can't be everywhere. I mean, people can't be everywhere.
Yeah. That's I know that's one of the reasons Matt carries a firearm. It's one of the reasons I carry a firearm, because like you said, the cops can't be everywhere.
I'm not afraid to use my Second Amendment right to protect somebody.
If I had an
Especially a
applause
child.
button, I would push it right now.
We had a lady that we also work with the other day. She had an incident, and she lives down here in Alabama as well. And another one of those towns where everybody knows everybody, but she had gone into Walmart, and Heather, was it a little boy or a little girl? I think little boy.
Yeah, I want to say it was a little boy.
Wanted some candy, and the mom said no. And of course, the little boy reacted like sometimes little kids do, you know, started crying or something about the candy. The mom reared back and punched him in the face.
Yeah, closed-fisted, punched this boy in the face because he wanted fruit snacks.
Yeah. So.
Wait. Time out. Rewind. Instant replay. Young child in the grocery store wants fruit snacks, and mom hauls off and straight up just
yes, I guess when she hit the boy, it was in the parking lot. I guess along the lines of he was throwing a fit. She cut the visit short in the store, went out to the car to put the stuff in the car, and hauled off and hit this little boy. Close-fisted.
Right.
Oh,
so
and that's when I go to jail.
She saw it happen
when you get a medal,
and grabbed the woman's arm because she went to hit him again. They started arguing, of course, and then the woman that we know and we work with ended up, you know, pulling her gun until the cops got there.
Yep.
And said,
Walmart called the cops.
And then she went and bought him the fruit snacks because
she did.
They took the kid, and she went and bought him the fruit snacks and gave it to him while they were waiting on, I guess, either a family member or child services. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, you've got to watch, you know. And she was really shook up about that because she was like, nothing like that has ever happened. But
I mean, I will say it's definitely not the first time she's whipped out a gun on somebody, but to that extent, I mean, Well, she has pulled out her weapon, that she is licensed to carry to protect other people before. It was a grown woman that she protected and got the grown woman and her children out of the violent situation they were in, held a gun to the guy's head and was like, touch him again, I'll use it. And she got the woman and her kids out of there. But to actually see this poor little boy get hit on because he just wanted fruit snacks, it definitely shook her up for a few days.
Wow, that's I've seen instances of people like what she did 100% justifiable. Absolutely. I've seen instances where people kind of overstepped a little bit because same situation, child sitting in the buggy is throwing a temper tantrum because mommy wouldn't buy him a toy or whatever, and he starts kicking and pitching a fit, and mom just gives him a little slap on the back of the hand. And I saw a woman call the cops over something like that happening,
Lord.
trying to get the woman arrested for child abuse.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is a straight up Karen. It's good that people are being vigilant and so on, but at the same time, you have to know which line has been crossed and let that vigilance, like, okay, mom just slapped the child on the back of the hand.
Good.
Typical thing. Happens all the time. Child was pitching a fit and mom just slapped him on the back of the hand. Fine. Whatever. Now, if it'd been an open palm slap across the top of the head, kind of like a Gibbs slap or whatever to a small child, okay, I'm going to watch this woman just a little bit more closely because that's not something you do to a child.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I had my situation, I was in a gas station and this lady was buying beer and cigarettes, and her child was like, I want this juice. And she was like, no, I'm not getting you a juice. So I went up there and bought the juice for the kid and was like, get your priorities straight. And just walk out. Like, you can afford beer and cigarettes, but you can't get your kid a juice.
Yep. Oh,
See, the law says I can't hit them, but they don't say anything about drop kicking.
That's funny. I mean, it sadly does happen, and Daniel, like you just said, with people being vigilant, keeping an eye on everybody, within your surroundings, people do have to be smart about it. There is a difference between discipline and beating the shit out of your kid. Everybody should know that. But I mean, it's like, I did, and I know Jen did too, and a few of my other members, we just told her, thank God you were there for this little boy, because, people don't realize that when you hit your child, they're going to cry more. So who's to say that she wouldn't have continued pummeling this poor little boy once she got him in the car?
Mm-hmm.
See, my mother was one of those kinds of mothers that she knew the store had security cameras. So if I was acting a fool as a child in the store, all she would have to do is just look at me and go, you just keep this shit up and wait until we get home.
Yes, my mom did that too. She'd be like, you wait until there's no witnesses. I'm like, oh no.
Right.
Feel that hot breath on your neck and you're just like, oh, I'm so screwed.
But at the same time, Matt, I know you and I grew up in the same era. Heather as well. Jennifer, I don't know how old you are, and I'm not going to ask, so I can't comment on you. But okay. So we grew up in that era where if we were in the store pitching a fit and our parents didn't want to do anything about it, another adult would come along and say, I would be more than happy to whoop that child's ass for you if you don't want to do it.
Door greeter Walmart beat the shit out of me. Straight up, I got my ass whipped by a door greeter at Walmart.
I think my mom killed me once, and I came back to life. And she spanked me again.
That happened with me several times.
And I had the grandmother whose favorite weapon to use was the coat hanger fly swatters. but she used the handle end of it. The end that you swat the flies with that had too much resistance, but she'd flip that thing around and that thing would slice through the air like a whip.
I grew up with a weeping willow in my yard. Yeah, so I had to go out there and pick my own switch. And if it wasn't good enough, I got it again.
What's weird though now, you know, because we all are in that generation that more than likely got our butts whooped growing up. And like y'all said, if nobody else had a problem stepping in and doing it, if parents didn't. And so we are the generation now with kids. But then there's this, I guess what everybody refers to as the millennials. You know, it's just a different time with like technology and stuff like that. And there's all these debates about that fine line of discipline and abuse. And I know for kind of our age group, I guess 30s, it's that struggle of, well, this is how I grew up getting spanked, so I'm going to spank my kids. But then there's this slightly younger generation than us that, you know, grew up more on technology and a little more coddled and things like that. And it's creating a lot of tension
or just simply had children because of teen mom. And it was so cute to have a baby when you're a baby yourself.
Right. You know, and everybody just, I swear the phrase of 2020 is I'm offended.
We just throw all of 2020 away. We just throw it out.
Wait,
no, that was no. The I'm offended offended catchphase that was 2019.
That's true. That is true.
Or what now? Or what next?
I'm pretty sure I'm offended started in 2008.
Yeah. Well, what's coming next? For the month of September?
No, my 2020 catchphrase is "fuck it."
Yeah. It's just better to not try and figure it out. Just wait till it happens. You're like, oh, welcome.
I think 2020 will become an official cuss word. Be like, oh, that's so 2020. Like, that's so 2020'd up.
I can see that.
If an alien came down right now and tried to probe me, I'd be like, oh, fuck. I've been expecting you.
It's about time.
But, you know, going back to the discipline thing, I spent 10 years on active duty in the Marine Corps. And
I drank for 10 years while you did that.
So y'all did the same thing.
Oh, I drank while I was doing it.
Yeah, but I was drinking for you.
Yeah, I just did it in uniform and got paid to do it.
Those 10 years. And drank to deal with it.
I paid to do it too.
So, I learned, you know, I've got my niece and nephew. I would watch my niece and nephew occasionally. And I learned I didn't have to be, you know, the authoritative disciplinarian, you know, take my belt off and all that other crap. I can hurt you without ever putting my hands on you. Like my nephew at one point talked about wanting to be a football player. I'd be watching him. He'd start showing his ass. Good. Go sit on the wall. Well, how long, Uncle Daniel? Until I'm tired.
Yeah, but see, I have a skill that you don't have, sir. You
have the stare.
I have daddy voice.
Oh yeah.
You don't get that till you have a kid. And man, when that shit comes in, it will stop anything under 4 feet in its tracks.
It's true.
I have stopped small women in Walmart using daddy voice.
It's true. I have to turn like psychotic in order for my kids to be like, oh, Mom, you said something?
You know.
Well, I mean, you're right. I don't have daddy voice.
You have that intimidating deep voice.
Yeah. Again, you know, again, it was, oh, you want to be a jackass? Go be a jackass sitting on the wall. Good. Get down in a front lane and rest. How many push-ups do you want me to do? All of them.
Yeah. Every single one, I'm going to be counting.
And he learned real quick if I told him to do something, not to question me. Do this. For how long? Until I say stop.
I think one of just the biggest, saddest things that people just really don't want to deal with, outside of just these abuse issues and stuff like that, is just mental health in general. Especially men, because, you know, men are supposed to be big and strong and the providers and not emotional, and you're not supposed to talk about these things. But, you know, a lot of what I think our society is running into is, let's take the two of y'all, for example. If even just one of you grew up in a toxic environment where there was abuse and you just weren't shown healthy relationships or healthy love, so just naturally you might just become like that because that's what you know and that's what you think is quote unquote normal. And
well, I'm a man and there is no shame in my game, and I will be the first one to admit that I cried at the end of A Walk to Remember.
And it's not manly, so to say, to go seek counseling or things like that. And then you also have all these traumatic professions, of like firefighters, cops, EMTs that are mostly male dominant, that are just constantly seeing, which we could probably have a whole other podcast just about mental health and stuff. But I know it was about 2 months ago, there was a neighboring small town, a firefighter committed suicide and married, 3 kids. If you looked at, you know, social media, which again we've discussed, you saw all these people going, I never would have seen that coming, I never saw that coming. But it's like, I don't think those professions, you know, encourage or even just have enough grace from outsiders of, hey, you might have, I mean, maybe that cop is on edge that just stopped you for speeding, but who's to say he didn't just come from a domestic violence situation where he saw a guy kill a female and her 2 kids, right? You know, like had to throw him in a car, wipe some blood off, and then go sit by the side of the road, and you're gonna wonder why he's edgy. You know, like he didn't even get time to just kind of like decompress from that.
Right. And yeah, I mean, it's like, and I know, I'm pretty sure, Daniel, you can vouch for this. I know that, you know, because my father, he was in the Navy. He was a master chief within the Navy. And, you know, I have other friends and acquaintances who are in the military or was in the military as well. And it's like, when they come back from their tours or what have you, a lot of people, they're instantly almost like, oh man, what was it like? What did you see? What happened out there? They don't take the time to realize what happened out there, you know, what had taken place, what they had to do, etc. Very insensitive about it. And then it almost becomes as if, you know, when that person is like, I'm not talking about this, like, we're not going to discuss it, I'm not going to talk about it, they rudely get upset over it.
You're right. You are absolutely right. It is
I find it almost disrespectful.
And there's that element of not talking about it either. It's like, because my dad, he went overseas as well, and he came back, and it's just like, you don't talk about what happened over there.
Nope, like, and you don't.
And it's,
well, it's not that we don't talk about what happened over there. It's, I mean, we talk about it, but we talk about people who also experience the same things that we experienced, because, you know, I can't speak for everybody that was deployed overseas. I know my father was a U.S. Marine Vietnam veteran. Never once. He told me a couple of funny stories from his times overseas, but he never once growing up told me any of his stories from his time in the Marine Corps until after I became a Marine.
Because you hadn't earned it yet.
And it is extremely overwhelming. I remember when I came home from my first deployment, I was 20 years old, and I was with my family. We were on our post-deployment leave block. So I'm hanging out, and my family is not my dad. My dad understood, but my mother, the girl I was dating at the time, a couple of my friends, everybody, like you said, there was, well, tell us what happened. Tell us what it was like. What did you? And my mother, she was, well, now that you're home, what do you want to do now? And where do you want to go eat? And what do you feel like doing? And it just felt like I was still trying to process everything I had just been through for the last 7.5 months. And they just kept piling shit on top of me. And I finally exploded. And I left the hotel and I just walked. We were staying at the hotel on base. I left the hotel and I just walked back to my barracks room and stayed there for a few hours. And then once I got calmed down and everything, I came back.
Yeah, I was much dick when you came home because you showed up to my house the first time after you were finally out of the military. I was like, well, you're alive.
But it does almost remind me in the sense, because it honestly does tie into it. It does remind me of that mental health, that people, they don't, how do I say it? Like, some people almost, it's not that they don't care, but they don't understand. And that's the thing that I've noticed with a lot of things. People who don't understand, they don't understand your concept of it because they just simply don't understand because they haven't been in that situation. It goes like, say for example, anyone can talk about rape, sexual assault, but not everyone understands it. Just like with you, anyone can talk about, people going overseas, being in the military, doing all these tours, but not everyone understands it because they haven't been there.
Yeah. And like I was saying earlier, the end of A Walk to Remember, that was 100% true. But the problem is with the military now and everything that I've been through with the military, I've become sort of annulled to what would normally be a tier, like the Susan Sarandon Save a Child commercials that they show this time. Yeah, that's just another commercial. But
my daughter did. My daughter, apparently. I would tackle anyone to get them out of my way so I could change the channel when that commercial came on, because my daughter would not stop crying for like 45 minutes.
But there's a movie that came out a few years ago on HBO starring Kevin Bacon, and that is a 100% true story. It was written by a United States Marine. The character that Kevin Bacon plays is the guy who wrote the story. It's called Taking Chance. And it is the story of a Marine officer who volunteers to escort the body home of a fallen Marine who he has no idea who he is, never met him before. Their only connection is he's from the same hometown. So he volunteers to escort this kid's body home. And it chronicles the entire journey from the body arriving, being cleaned up, placed in uniform, him taking custody of the body to the Marine's funeral. And at one point during his travels, he encounters a soldier who is escorting the body home of another fallen soldier. Come to find out, the soldier he is escorting home is his own brother. And that, like, if there was ever that I bawled my eyes out and cried like a bitch as an adult, that was it.
That's so sad. But see, you You just said it though.
And
you know, because you're like, if I watch that movie, I would most definitely bawl my eyes out. But it's almost expected because I'm a woman. And you just kind of just said it. Well, like a bitch, I cried. It's not that that's what you are, but men, you know, because of society, men are viewed as you're supposed to be hardened, you're not supposed to cry. So, I mean, you kind of just right there.
You know, it's funny you mention that because I use that phrase I don't know how many times, and I really don't mean it in that context.
You know, I'm flashing back to a stand-up comedy I watched one time, and the dude was like, you know, if a werewolf's chewing on your balls, you're not supposed to cry. Talking about men. And then the comment was like, no, if a werewolf's chewing on your balls, you cry.
It's true, though.
But, I mean, it really is. Like, in the military, they teach us, unless you're dead, don't go to the doctor.
Was I in the military?
I mean, that's literally what it is. It is you are if you go to the doctor because you have a cold or your back hurts or anything like that, you are branded a malingerer.
Take a knee and drink water.
Yeah. They tell you, you know, if you're hurting, if you're in pain,
so
suck it up and keep pushing forward.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jennifer.
I was just going to say, if you think about that and you have, you know, whether it's military or, you know, cops or paramedics, just men in general, which are very men dominant professions, they're showing up to these situations, so to say, to just kind of full circle back to the Sophie case. You know, they called the cops the other night at that exchange because, you know, it was just going so bad. So you have these men that, for the most part, are desensitized because of social pressure, you know, family situations, because they have to be for their job. And they're showing up to these situations with young girls or young boys. And it's like they're trying to be empathetic, but you've gotten such a program of, hey, I can't get too invested in this. It almost reminds me. So my sister, she's a physician's assistant for a neurosurgeon. And so a lot of times she works for two of them. She's the one that has to go into these rooms and tell these patients, hey, you have a brain tumor and it's terminal and it can't be removed. And this is what it looks like, you know, and there's times she cries with them and stuff, but she has to stay very just cold. And I hate to use that term. She uses that term though, but they have to, or else they just won't even be able to make it through a day. And
yeah, that's how it is with, you know, with what I do in regards to when I meet up with rape and sexual assault survivors, you know, who are needing the clothes or what have you. When I'll meet up with them, you know, I want to cry with them because I get it. I've been there, you know, I was raped, I was sexually assaulted and molested. So it's like I can understand this survivor to the fullest. And I know this sounds really cold because that's basically what it is. And I know that it sounds very harsh, but it's like I will catch myself, you know, shedding a tear, but I have to wipe it away and I have to stay strong, straight face, empathetic, but still distance because, you know, and then when I get home, you know, that's when I release it. That's when I bawl my eyes out. I feel for this person, you know, but during that situation, when you're helping and providing, you have to be the stronger one. You can't show weakness, so to speak, because the person you're helping, they're already at their lowest. If they see that you're crying too, it makes them feel lower. It's very difficult.
It's like I said, the military really annuls us. We become numb to emotion, and a lot of times it takes a pretty traumatic event to get us to really open up emotionally about things. Without going into full detail, Heather, you know what I'm talking about.
You don't need to discuss it if you don't feel it.
Well, no, it's fine. Like I said, sometimes it takes a really traumatic event to get us to start getting the emotions to come up. And the therapy that I went through, and I'm still going through for it, has been extremely beneficial as far as getting me to realize I don't have to be that hard ass, emotionless, gung ho, ass in the grass grunt Marine that I was, 5 years ago.
Well, I mean, honestly, if you think about it, though, it starts even before you're in the military. You didn't play a lot of sports, but I did. And you're not allowed to show emotion. You're not allowed to show pain.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
I played an entire season of basketball with 2 broken ribs and a broken finger because I wasn't allowed to be hurt. So,
it does. It really does.
For guys.
I mean, I've even seen it with my sons. Their fathers would say, "Oh, shake it off. Boys will be boys. Don't cry. You're crying like a girl." And even with other people, I've heard that so many times when it comes to boys, and it really drives me nuts, and I'll look at, my 2-year-old, he's still little, but my 6-year-old, if he's hurt, I'll look at him and be like, "It's okay to cry. You're okay." And no, I can't cry. I can't cry. And it just, it does. Society does put that on boys so young.
Yeah, I saw a kid at a baseball game, probably 7, 8 years old, at a rec league ball game, take a line drive to the face. I mean, we're talking a baseball coming in 50, 60 miles an hour.
No, faster than that.
I mean, we're talking 7, 8 year olds. We're not talking Mark McGuire in the majors hitting 110 mile an hour fastball off of his bat.
You've never seen my son hit a baseball, have you?
No, I haven't. But a line drive baseball coming in, smashing you in the face. Hell, at 33 years old, I would probably cry if that happened.
I'm not going to cry, but man, am I going to cuss. Oh, I'm going to string together some profanity that even Satan himself would go, "I'm pretty impressed." But yeah, I don't know. I try not to do that with my son. If he hurts himself and he cries, I try to let him cry. But, at a certain point, you also have to realize that the world we live in, you can't show weakness. And that's the sad reality of it.
And I can agree to that to the fullest with my children. I can agree so much on that. And I do feel that also ties in with what we were talking about towards the beginning of the show, of people, whether it's parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, whoever, they do need to pay attention to the children because of how they have to be hardened. And I mean, even with my girls, I sit here and I teach them, you have to be independent. You can't rely on anyone. You have to take care of yourself, so in a sense, I am hardening my children, so I am guilty of that in a sense, but because of today's society, and honestly, I can't even say today's society, it's been going on for so long, people are not paying attention to the children. So it's like, we try to harden our children. We try to teach them morals and ethics and values, while at the same time, it's, a lot of people, they don't understand that children, say if they're being raped or sexually assaulted in any kind of way, you know, a lot of times they're not going to come forward right away and tell what had happened, you know, and when they do finally come out, even if they do wait, it's not in the sense of, oh, hey, mom, I need to talk to you. I was just raped. That doesn't happen. I mean, it does, but not a lot, you know, because they themselves don't understand it. So when, you know, a child at 5, 6 years old is like, you know, oh, hey, well, Uncle Jimmy was giving me a bath, but he scrubbed too hard down there. They don't understand what had taken place. And I mean, everyone has their different parenting, you know, style. But that's just like, say, for example, with my children, you know, they know what a penis is. They know what a vagina is, because when there are sexual predators, for whatever reason, they use nicknames for, you know, anatomy. So if I know that I teach my children the proper terminology and they come at me of, oh, Uncle Jimmy touched my box or whatever, I know that, God forbid, something is going on because you're using a different terminology. And that I do feel that that is something that a lot of people don't pay attention to, and they really should.
Well, I think also with it, it's like any form of abuse. I mean, you know, maybe not 9 times out of 10, but definitely on the heavier end of it. Abuse rarely, whether it's domestic or sexual or, you know, child, it's very rarely, oh, I get this person one time and I'm going to abuse them one time. It usually is a process. There's the grooming, the manipulation, the trust process that's formed, all that manipulation, emotionally, mentally. And then by the time it gets to the physical point, you know, you're so, I guess, I read something the other day that made a perfect analogy. It basically talked about almost as if you're in a room and there's like somebody starts leaking gas into the room. You know, at first it's very mild and then it becomes strong and then eventually you just adjust to it. And you're so fogged at that point that it's hard to know what's clear and what's not anymore.
Right.
So especially with children, because they're so just, you know, innocent and vulnerable, and they haven't been out in the world or learned things and whatever. It's a lot easier for that process with them because, you know, they may know, so to say, it's not right. Just like when I was in my bad relationship, I knew what was going on was not right. You know, I knew, but it was everything else that just, like, it was that gas in the room that just clouded it. And so it's very rare, I think, for a child to, let's go back to Uncle Jimmy. Poor Uncle Jimmy's kind of getting the bad rap tonight, but
yeah.
So to say, Uncle Jimmy doesn't come to one family event, get the 6-year-old, take her to another room, do bad things to her, and then that's it. You know, it's usually a grooming process and a trust building process. And like I said, I don't know statistics to back that up, but you just see that over and over and over. It's never just this, hey, they showed up one time, this happened. Yeah, maybe so for like rape or something, but even with rape, most of the time it's somebody that they know. So
it is,
again, it's that familiarity, and that's where it gets so hard for not only a child, just people in general to say, that was not right. I need to speak up about this, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, I didn't even do that as an adult. So how can we expect these standards on children that we can't even do ourselves?
Right, exactly. And it's like, you know, with statistics, I love giving statistics. However, it's also, in a sense, a false number, because the numbers that are statistically out there, you know, that's only what's reported. So knowing that there's so much more that isn't reported, the number is actually higher, you know. And it's like, in regards to statistics, you know, 7 in 10 is the fraction of rape or sexual assault committed by someone the victim knows. And that's another thing with children, is that children are also resilient. They bounce back. So, you know, while they're going through this, you know, traumatic incident, they do bounce back from it. They try to go back to the quote unquote normal. So they'll do what they can to move on and just act as if it's okay. And then it happens again. And then the resiliency comes back. You know, that's just how it is, unfortunately.
So I just, you know, it's tough because you hear about those parents or whatever that almost get upset with their children of like, why didn't you come to me, or things like that. But again, I mean, I didn't go to the cops the first time I had hands laid on me. So, you know, I knew it was wrong, but it was what it was. So it's like, it's not instantly in these children's minds to just sound off all these sirens and, you know, go from 0 to 100 on it.
Exactly. And especially when it comes to children, I mean, adults as well, but with children, most especially, people seem to forget that emotional abuse is there. You know, verbal abuse is there. It is a thing. It's not just physical or sexual. It's emotional, verbal, you know. And because those things can't be seen, people forget that it's there and it exists.
Right.
So, I mean, a lot of that does tie in with Sophie and, you know, everything that we've discussed tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So do you guys have anything more to share, or is that pretty much it for tonight's episode?
I think that's it for me.
Yeah, I think I've said my piece on it. Matt, what about you?
No, I think
all right. Well, for everyone who's listening, thank you so much for listening in. And in the description box, I will have Two Beards Talking within the description, so there you guys could check them out. They're on Facebook as well. Awesome shows. If you get hurt easily by words, maybe not check them out. But they're definitely an awesome show to listen to, and I can't thank you guys enough for coming on tonight and talking about all of this. It's been great.
Well, it was our pleasure. We do appreciate you giving us the opportunity to come on. And
Yay,
one more shameless plug, we have t-shirts.
You need to get that potato really gun thing, then put the t-shirts in it and just like shoot it off.
Oh, I can make a tater launcher.
Yeah, just give me 15 minutes of glue.
And some PVC as well.
I don't even need PVC, dude. I can make it out of anything.
Let's make one out of galvanized steel.
The beauty of Alabama.
So
yeah.
Oh well, coming in hot.
Yeah, we're gonna make tater cannons to launch t-shirts.
And if you can't catch, you're fucked.
And because we're going to make it out of galvanized steel, it's going to be able to withstand enough pressure that we could launch one down there to where you're at, Jennifer. We don't even have to come down there. You just step outside your house, give us a coordinates, and I'll set it up in the general direction. That's what I did. I was a mortarman.
He was a mortarman.
I was a mortarman, so I don't even have to see my target. Just give me coordinates.
Give me
awesome.
the coordinates. I will call for fire. He will send it.
Never have enough.
That is awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on tonight, and thank you for everyone who is listening, and that's it.
Thanks, Heather, and thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night, guys.
Thanks, Heather.
Thanks.
You too. Bye.